Should we be doing like the UK and having only the children of essential personnel in schools?
What we're doing is taking the very best medical advice from our federal chief medical officer and all the state and territory chief medical officers. Obviously, each country's circumstances are different, so what we have to do is listen to our medical experts, and they're internationally renowned, and that's why the federal government and all state and territory governments are taking their advice and acting upon it. And you've got to remember, the National Cabinet is made up of leaders of all different political persuasions, but they've come together, they've agreed that this is the best course of action that we can take, and that's why the federal government is following that medical advice and why all state and territory governments are following that medical advice.
What's so different from our situation compared to Britain, though, that we wouldn't follow their lead on this? It seems like a pretty sensible halfway measure.
Well, because the medical advice that governments are being provided with is really telling in two ways. First of all, that if you preemptively move to close schools, you could impact your workforce, your medical workforce in particular, by 30%. Now, at this time, we need our medical workforce in place. We need it dealing with the spread of the virus, and also we want them preparing and planning for the increased spread of the virus. We also want to make sure that we're keeping the most vulnerable in our community safe, and that means that we've got to be looking after our elderly and those with respiratory ailments or other conditions where the virus might have a severe impact. And by having our children at school, that means that we're keeping the most vulnerable safe in the community. And can I say this to all the principals, to all the teachers and associated schooling staff, a very, very big thank you for what you're doing at the moment while we're dealing with this virus. Making sure that we've got a continuity of education for our children at this time is absolutely vital, and you're playing a crucial role in helping us deal with the virus. And can I just say to all those teachers who are out there in particular, a very big thank you for what you're doing and the important role you're playing.
Can you rule out that we won't close the schools at any point in the coronavirus crisis?
Look, every contingency is being planned for, but what I can tell you is that we will take the medical advice as it's given to us. So we will continue to listen to the chief medical officers right across the country, and we will act on that advice. And if that advice changes, then government decision-making will change accordingly. But while that advice is to keep our schools open, we want to do everything we can to help and assist our principals and our teachers to make sure that they're offering that continuity of education that our children need at this time.
In Singapore, they've been scanning the temperature of every child going into schools to weed out the ones that do have a fever. Should we be doing that in Australia?
Well, what we'll be doing is listening to the medical experts here. Now, they're looking at what is taking place in other countries. They're looking at what Singapore are doing. They're looking at what the UK is doing and what other countries are doing. And then they're looking at what is best for our circumstances here in Australia. And they will continue to monitor that. They will continue to provide advice. And if that advice says that we should be putting in place additional measures, then we'll do that. But at the moment, that advice is clear. What we're saying to parents is that you've got a very important role to play at the moment as well. And that is, if your child has flu-like symptoms, is feeling unwell, has a temperature, make sure that they don't go to school. So that's the really important role that our parents can play at this moment in ensuring that children who are attending school are well. And if our parents do that and play that role well, that will help us deal with the spread of the virus.
If you are already a stay-at-home mum or dad, is there any real problem with keeping your kids home regardless if it's not going to impact the workforce?
Well, some parents are already making a choice. They're deciding that they prefer to have their children at home, and that's their individual choice. But what we're doing as a government, as a Commonwealth government, working with state and territory governments, is taking the very best medical advice in what our schools should do at the moment, and that advice is clear. We need them open, and all those parents who want to be sending their children to school, then we want to make sure our schools are open so they can do so.